So I'm 34 years old, and I've never heard my mom cry, not once. I don't think I've ever even heard her complain or tell me about a hardship, actually. And to me, this was totally normal until a friend of mine gave me that same expression that people give you when you haven't seen this classic movie. She was like, "What? You haven't seen Casablanca? Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, so what? My mom, she likes joy and peace." And I was like, that seemed totally normal. Until the worst week of my life hit. Me and my wife got into this big argument. She told me that I always repressed my emotions, and she has to pull all these stories out of me. I never give her anything. And this would have been a totally normal argument, except that we've been having it for 16 years straight. And I know what you're thinking. He's way too young and way too attractive to be with the same person for 16 years, right? But it's true. We met when we were 18. We dated for 5 years, got married when we were 23. We had two beautiful boys, a 7-year-old who's super intense and smart, but he likes dressing like a homeless person, and a caring 4-year-old who, just yesterday, I was told for the 176th time, looks like John Legend. This would be a great story, such a beautiful family, except that me and my wife are complete opposites. She's a 5'2" Indonesian American, and I'm a 6 foot Black American. It says it on my driver's license, so I'm not lying. We're complete opposites. She's fiery, she's raw, she's really intelligent. I'm very composed, I'm calm, and usually I'm the second dumbest person in any room, which means that there's somebody out there who's dumber than me in here. So there we were going at it, we were fighting, she was shouting at me, I had some perfectly logical reasoning, and then she was shouting at me about how annoying my perfectly logical reasoning was. The argument never ended. She just walked out of the room, grabbed a suitcase, packed it full of stuff, ready to leave. And after 16 years of fighting and trying to keep us together, I was ready to let her go. But it was 1 a.m. in the morning, so she decided that she's just going to go to sleep. We didn't have another word, and we didn't talk to each other for the rest of the week. She just left the suitcase there fully packed like it was a shotgun, and she could walk out anytime she wanted to. So at first, I thought maybe we'll work things out, maybe things will go back. I didn't know where we were. We didn't say anything to each other all week, and I thought the week couldn't get any worse until I got a call that my grandma, who had been complaining about, seasonal allergies. She actually had 2 heart attacks. So this really caught me off guard, and all I could remember is when I used to live next door to my grandparents growing up, and I used to sneak behind her and steal some sugar from her yellow Tupperware while she was cooking, and it really, really caught me off guard. It did bring me and my wife back together. She grew up with her grandparents, so I was really grateful that she could empathize with how I felt. I was then the one that was packing a bag, and I dashed out the door. I had a flight for later that evening in just a few hours. But of course, being usually the second dumbest person in the room, and also my grandma having 2 heart attacks, I took the train the wrong direction into Manhattan. So then I'm freaking out. What did I just do? I get out the train, rush back, get out of the train, take an Uber so I can get there fast. And I'm like, I get there and I look, did I make my flight? Well, my flight's delayed by an hour, so I'm like, I made it. So I get to the gate. It turns out the hour delay turns into a 2-hour delay. And then after a little bit more time, they announce on the PA system, all flights out of New York will be canceled. And I'm like, but there's literally an airplane taking off right there. And nobody said anything, so I figured it must be Spirit Airlines. So I walked all the way back to the train, go through the swipe, get back to Brooklyn where I live, and sure enough, there's like 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, torrential downpour. I'm getting soaked with my luggage, and I'm thankful that I'm grounded, that I didn't get in the flight. I get back to my home, and I guess I had forgotten that it was my birthday. And my wife had pulled together this dinner. She got some really close friends. 2 really close friends came over and tried to make things as pleasant as they could be. Of course, we talked about the weather. Next thing we knew, we were talking about my canceled flight, and for some reason, I decided to share everything with them that had happened that week, just completely poured out my heart. And my friend, my guy friend, the first thing he tells me is about the work by Byron Katie, which is this whole process of, I guess, how he tried to explain it about not being sad and recognizing that you and your wife are still together, so you shouldn't be stressing out about that. And your grandma's still alive, so you shouldn't be stressing out about that, which could be a good thing to tell somebody if they've been suffering for a long time, but this happened to me just that day. So here we are again. I was in a heated argument with my friend, going back and forth, and the next thing I know, we're having an argument about whether Rosa Parks was angry the day she got arrested. And that's when I know that I'm not okay. I'm shaking, my hands, I'm very aggressive, and they point it out, and I'm like, oh wow. Anyway, they leave. The next morning, I text them to apologize for being so aggressive, and that I was just caught up in the moment and all the emotions of the week. But the truth was that I didn't want anybody to pull me out of the dark hole I was in. I was really hoping that there would be somebody who would climb into the dark hole and tell me, this is really scary, but you're not alone. 4 days later, I finally made it down to Florida where my grandma was, so happy to meet her in the hospital because the next week she passed away. And I would love to tell you guys that I've finally seen that classic movie, the one where my mom opens up and cries, or that I've mastered sharing more with my wife. But as a man and somebody who's packed in their emotions their entire life, I'm only now just learning that vulnerability is not weakness, and sadness and truth are catalysts for connection. Thank you.